This is Algebra 2, test number 10. We got through lesson 5.2 where we were factoring quadratics. Number 1 tells you to factor the expression x squared plus 14x plus 48. So we got 1 as our a value. So what we want to do is open up two binomials and make x times x first, and then factor your c value 48. Now, as you do more of these problems, more and more of these problems, you're not going to have to list out every factor because you're going to notice that since b's value is 14, you know you need to get to a bigger number. So you're not going to get numbers that are necessarily really close together or really far apart. And you won't understand that, like I said, until you get to where you're doing more of these. For right now, though, let's list them all out to where we're comfortable. Numbers 1 times 48 gives you 48. 2 times 24 does it. 3 times 16 is 48. 4 times 12. Notice the further down we go, the closer the numbers are getting together. 4 and 12. 5 doesn't go into it. 6 does. And it's times 8. Look how close the numbers 6 and 8 are. There's only one number between those. So you know you listed all of the factors at that point since 7 doesn't multiply by anything. So which pair of those numbers, when you combine them, and I use that word combine because I don't want you to think of it as plus or minus right now. I want you to think of it as both of them at the same time. Which pair of those numbers get you to 14? 1 and 48 is 47 or 49. That's not a good pair. 2 and 24 is going to be 22 or 26. That's not it. 3 and 16 is going to be 19 or 13. That's not it. 4 and 12 is going to be 16 or 8. That's not it. The only number that gets you to the number, or the only pair that gets you to the number 14 is 6 and 8. So we got to use those, 6 and 8. Remember, the sign in front of C tells you they're either the same or they're different. That's all that sign tells you. Since it's plus, that means the signs are the same. And since they're both the same, the sign in front of B tells you they're both positive. So plus 6, plus 8. We're going to do the same thing with number 2, except your factors of 8 are usually a little bit easier to do than 48. You know you only have 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. Which pair of those will get you to B's value 6? 1 and 8 again will only get you to 7 or 9. 2 and 4 is going to get you to 2 or 6. So we're going to use 2 and 4. Again, this sign tells you they're either the same or they're different. That's all it tells you. Positive means the same. Since they're the same, this one's the one that tells you they're both minus. Minus 2, minus 4. Again, that's simple factoring of quadratics where A's value is 1. The same thing with this one, x squared minus 2x minus 63. Again, 63 has more factors involved, but it's still A's value is 1, so it's still x times x. So 63's factors, 1 and 63. 2 doesn't go into it because it's odd. 3 does. It goes into it 21 times. 4 does not go into it. 5 does not go into it because it doesn't end in 5 or 0. 6 doesn't go into it because we know 6 times 11 is 66, and that's right by 63, so that doesn't work. 7 goes into it. It goes into it 9 times. And look how close those numbers are to each other. The only number between 7 and 9 is 8, and that doesn't go into it. So those are the only 3 pairs of factors for 63. Which pair gets you to B's value? Look how far apart these numbers are. That's going to be, so you're going to get a great big number right there. That's what I meant by not having to list all of the factors once you get better at this. Again, 3 and 21, look how far apart those numbers are. We're looking for the number 2. The only pair that'll get you to the number 2 is 7 and 9. So we use 7 and 9. This one tells us they're either the same or they're different. The first two were both positive right there. They were both the same, 1 and 2. This one's negative. It means they're both different. Don't let this part confuse you. Since they're both different, this one tells you the sign of the larger value. 9 is larger, so it's negative, and 7 is smaller, so it's positive. Plus 7 minus 9. Again, 1, 2, and 3 were all A value 1. 4's value is, A's value is 5. So for this one, you have to use 5 and 1. That's the only factors of 5. So we'll use 5x times 1x. You have to do it that way. Since there is a different A value, we can't just list our factors of C and choose the correct one. We're going to have to do a few different ones and FOIL it back to make sure we get the number 22. So if we use 5 and 1, we know our factors of C are 1 and 15, and there's only 2 pairs, 3 and 5. So that makes it a whole lot easier because there's not a lot to work with. 1 and 15 and 3 and 5, but the order of those numbers will make a difference. So if we do each one of those just to where we'll be safe, since there's not a lot of factors, we'll wind up with 4 different 1s. And again, that's positive and negative and which order they're in. 5x, and again, this is one of those things, as you do more and more of these, it gets much, much simpler and much, much quicker. 5x and x. So we'll use this pair right here, 1 and 15. So 1 and 15 and 15 and 1. Notice I just put them in a different order. That's all I did. 1 and 15 and 15 and 1. Okay? And we'll use this pair here, 3 and 5. I'm not sure why I skipped this one. 3 and 5, and over here, 5 and 3. So right here, the signs are still true, though. This sign still tells you they're different, and this sign says since they're different, the bigger number or the larger value is negative. So 15 is larger, it's going to be negative. 15 is larger, it's going to be negative. So for each one of these, one's positive. 5 is larger, so it's negative. 3 is positive. Same thing over here. 5 is larger, 3 is positive. So we have 4 different binomials right here, or 4 different sets of binomials. Which one gets you back to the number 22? So when we FOIL this one, 5x times x is 5x squared. 5x times negative 5 is negative 25. And negative 25 plus 3 is negative 22. So that's probably the right one. Let's check the others just to make sure. 5x times negative 15, 5 times 2 is 30. 5 times 4 is 60. 5 times 5 is 75. That number's way bigger than 22. So notice that number's 75 is way bigger than 22. That one doesn't work. 5 times 1 is 5, and 15 times 1 is 15. 5 and 15 is only 20. That's not 22. That doesn't get us there. Again, 5 times 3 is 15, and 5 times 1 is 5. Again, that's only 20. So the only pair that works is 5x plus 3 and x minus 5. And again, the more you do those, the more you'll realize to get to the number 22, you'll have to use the numbers that multiply to give you 25 and then subtract 3 from it. So 5x plus 3, there'll only be one like this on a test tomorrow where you have different factors other than 1. The rest of them, the a value will simply be 1. So focus on those and do your best on this type of problem tomorrow. Number 5 is the difference of 2 perfect squares. Difference means minus of 2 perfect squares. 2 perfect squares means you can take the square root of this one. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of x squared is x. And you could take the square root of this one. The square root of 16 is 4. So 3x and 4, it's both plus that and 3x minus that. That is the shortcut version of the difference of 2 perfect squares. If you FOIL that out, 3x times 3x is 9x squared. 3x times negative 4 is negative 12. 3x times 4 is positive 12. Those cancel each other out. That's why there's no b value. And 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. If you FOIL that back out, you get back to 9x squared minus 16. And then number 6 is a problem that we have not gotten to yet, but watch how easy it is. It'll be on the test, but it'll be bonus just like that other one was last week. 4x squared plus 28x minus 32. The first thing you want to do is ask yourself what number, as you're looking at A, B, and C, this one, and this one, what number do they all have in common? What factor goes into all of them? You might look at it and say 2. Sure, 2 does, but then you'll have to do it again. 4 definitely goes into all 3 of those numbers. So 4 times what gives you 4x squared is the question. And it's 4 times x squared. 4 times what gives you 28x, positive 7x. And 4 times what gives you negative 32, negative 8. So it says all of that is equal to 0. Now the problem's not done though. That's just factoring out the 4. And when you factor out the 4, when you do something like that, as long as you're not pulling a variable out of it, you can almost ignore that 4 from that point. So I just scratched through it one time. So right here, now it's just factoring a trinomial just like 1, 2, and 3 were on the test. So x times x, and then look at your pairs of c's value, 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. Which pair of those gets you to the number 7? You have to use the numbers 1 and 8 because 2 and 4 will either get you to 2 or 6. So the same things are true. This still tells you that the signs are different. And this tells you since they're different, the bigger number is plus. So plus 8 minus 1. But the problem is not finished there. That's what we did for 1, 2, and 3, and even 4. It says equals 0. This is actually the easiest part, and this is what I meant by you'll be able to get an extra point on this with no problem. X minus 1, x plus 8. What you do is you take this binomial, x minus 1, and make it equal to 0. And you take this binomial, x plus 8, and you make it equal to 0. Then that's just two very simple equations to solve. Undo minus 1 for the first one by adding 1 to both sides. X is 1. And undo plus 8 by subtracting 8 on both sides. X is negative 8. And if you think about what this question represents, 4x squared plus 28x minus 32 equals 0, the degree of this problem, this 2 right here, that's what that means, the degree, the actual exponent, the largest exponent is the degree. That tells you how many answers the problem actually has. So x is both 1 and negative 8. 2 answers. Number 7 tells you to identify the vertex of the graph. Tell whether it's a minimum or a maximum. Right when you look at the picture, is it a minimum or a maximum? Is it at the bottom or is it at the top? That's all you have to ask yourself. Visually, you need to be able to look at that point and see, is it at the bottom or the top? It's at the bottom of the graph, so it's a minimum. Simple. The other part tells you to identify the vertex. I just made a dot where the vertex is. So remember, a vertex is not just one value. It is an ordered pair. It's an x comma y. Its x value is 0. Its y value is negative 1. So 0, negative 1 is the vertex. Number 8 tells you to graph this one. Okay, this is from last week. F of x, you read that, you can look at that and think of that as y is equal to negative 2x squared plus 2x plus 1. Label the axis of symmetry and the vertex. So remember, x's value, and I'm going to write this on the board tomorrow, but you need to memorize this. X is equal to negative b over 2a. So we need to take, this is ax squared plus bx plus c. So negative b will be negative 2 over 2 times a. A's value is negative 2. So you have negative 2 over negative 4. So you get x's value as a positive 1/2. So once you have x's value as a positive 1/2, remember that represents your axis of symmetry. If that's 1, this is 1/2, and this is your axis of symmetry. It says to label the vertex and the axis of symmetry. This is the axis of symmetry here. X is equal to 1/2. From there, remember, the next thing you want to do is determine where the vertex is. We need to know if it opens up or down to determine where we put it on our picture. Remember, this tells us, this negative a tells us that it's going to open down, so we're going to have a picture that looks like this. So we know our vertex is going to be at the top. It's going to be the maximum. In order to find y, you plug in your new value of x, 1/2. So y, or f of x, is equal to negative 2 times our new value of x, 1/2, squared, plus 2 times 1/2 plus 1. So 1/2 squared is going to be 1/4. And 2 times 1/4, negative 2 times 1/4 is negative 1/2. Half of 2 is plus 1, and then you still have plus 1. So negative 1 plus 1 is, negative 1/2 plus 1 is 1/2, and 1 plus 1/2 is 1.5. So 1, 2, your vertex will be at 1.5. So right there, that gives you your vertex. That point, which is the top of our graph, is 1/2, and 1.5 or 3/2. That's the vertex. So we have the axis of symmetry and the vertex labeled. Remember, now it's just as simple as sliding to the left or sliding to the right. Remember, it's easier to multiply the number 0 than it is to multiply the number 1. So we'll slide to this x value here, 0. So when x is 0, we'll plug it in. Anything 0 squared and anything times 0 is 0. Anything times 0 is 0. So so when your x value is 0, your y value, the only thing that's left over is 1. So you graph that one at 0, 1. Remember, it's mirrored on the other side. So if you move over a half a unit there and a half a unit here, you're in the same spot. Remember, check and see if your graph is open in the direction you said it was going to open, and it is. It's going down. So then slide over one more time. You can either slide to x is 2, or you could slide to x is -1, whichever one you prefer. -1's probably easier when you square it and stuff like that. So we'll use x is -1. Both of them are going to work. Either one works. So again, if we plug it into the same equation, -1 squared is 1. 1 times -2 is -2. -1 times 2 is -2. And then plus 1. So -2 minus 2 is -4. And -4 plus 1, y's value is -3. So that gives you your y value. So when x is -1, y is -1, 2, 3, that point right there. And again, if that point's there, this one's mirrored on the other side. And you can draw your graph from those 5 points. Number 9 is actually a very easy problem. We didn't discuss how to do this one last week, but it's a very easy problem. It says a ball is thrown into the air with an upward velocity of 36 feet per second. Think of what's going on right here. This is time, and this is distance, or this is height is a better way to say this. And there's a little man standing right here, and he throws the ball. It's going to do this. Just picture what's going on. 36 feet per second. Its height, h in feet after t seconds, is a function. H is equal to -16 t squared plus 36 t plus 6. Think of that as y equals -16 x squared plus 36x plus 6. Notice all I did was change y for h and x for t. So from there, it says in how many seconds will it reach its maximum height. So if you have time on the bottom and height on the y-axis, you know if it's maximum height, it says in how many seconds. So at what time? So right here, you're looking for the x value. Remember, x is equal to -b over 2a. -b is -36 over 2 times a is -16. So -36 over 2 times -16 is -32. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. The number 4 goes into this one 9 times and into this one 8 times. So your x value is 9 over 8, or 1 1/8 seconds. So it says round to the nearest hundredth as necessary, 1 1/8 seconds. And what is the ball's maximum height? The maximum height will be how high it gets here on the picture. So what you're finding is the vertex of this picture. So right here, all you need to do to find the vertex is plug in the new value that we just found, 9 over 8, and find what the y is. Y equals -16 times 9 over 8 squared plus 36 times 9 over 8 plus 6. And once you get your y value from there, that's going to be your maximum height. If you square both of these numbers here, you get 81 over 64. That's multiplying times -16. Plus 36 times 9 over 8 plus 6. Again, that's big calculations to do. This is when you want to break your calculator out for problems like this, because it makes this tremendously easier. But the number 16 goes into this, if you recognize that, to make it a lot smaller. 16 goes into this one 4 times and into this one -1 times. So that's -81. So when you multiply -1 times 81, you get 81, and it's still over 4. The rest of this calculation is going to take a little bit. Um, the number 4 goes into both of these. It goes into 8 twice, and it goes into 36 9 times. So when you multiply 9 times 9, you get 81, and it's over 2, and then plus 6. So we got a lot of fraction calculations right here. You got to make that bottom number the same. The bottom number, remember, this is over 1, so the common denominator, that 4, 2, and 1/2 is 4, so make them all 4. -81 stays the same. 2 has to multiply by 2, so 81 has to multiply by 2, and you get 162, and that's positive. And then 1 has to multiply by 4. 6 multiplies by 4, so you get 24, and again, that one's positive. So all of the bottom numbers are the same now. 4, when you add up -81, 162, and 24, you get 105. So we're still, again, looking for the y value, which is going to be the height of this problem. 105 divided by 4 is going to be 26.25. So that creates your vertex at 26.25 feet. So the answer to the question that's going on, it says, what is the ball's maximum height? That maximum height is 26.25 or 26.25 feet. And again, as you're looking at a picture of that mathematically, again, that little man standing right here on 0, and he throws the ball and it goes up like that. We said that at x's value of 9/8 is where it reaches its maximum height. So that's what created the line of symmetry. And the maximum height we just found just now was at 26.25 feet.